Narrower than a single runway at its tightest point, a 90-kilometer strip of water between the Malay Peninsula and the Indonesian island of Sumatra holds the entire global economy hostage. Every single year, over 90,000 vessels, carrying 40% of world trade and over 80% of East Asia's crude oil, pass through a razor-thin maritime corridor known as the Strait of Malacca. If a war broke out tomorrow and this narrow passage were blockaded, factory assembly lines from Tokyo to Frankfurt would grind to a halt within days, gas stations across Asia would run dry, and the global financial system would collapse into unprecedented chaos. Welcome back to Declassified Geopolitics. Today, we are uncovering why the Strait of Malacca is the single most dangerous choke point on Earth. To understand the immense vulnerability of the Strait of Malacca, one must first look at a map of global trade routes. Connecting the Indian Ocean to the South China Sea and the Pacific, the strait is the shortest, fastest maritime highway between the oil-rich Middle East, industrial giants in East Asia, and consumers in the West. Alternative routes, such as navigating south of Indonesia through the Sunda Strait or the deep-water Lombok Strait, add thousands of nautical miles, millions of dollars in fuel costs, and days of transit time to every commercial journey. At its narrowest point, the Phillips Channel in the Singapore Strait, the navigable shipping lane shrinks to just 1.7 nautical miles wide and 25 meters deep. In this cramped nautical bottleneck, massive ultra-large crude carriers measuring 400 meters long must maneuver past sandbars, unpredictable tropical rainstorms, and hundreds of smaller fishing vessels. A single grounded container ship or deliberate naval scuttling at this exact bottleneck could block the entire channel, creating a global economic catastrophe far worse than the 2021 Suez Canal blockade. This extreme geographical vulnerability gave rise to what Chinese strategists famously termed the Malacca Dilemma. China, the world's largest manufacturing powerhouse and top importer of crude oil, relies on the Strait of Malacca for over 80% of its total petroleum imports. Every single day, approximately 15 million barrels of oil pass through this narrow funnel heading toward Chinese ports. Chinese military analysts recognize that in the event of a geopolitical conflict over Taiwan or the South China Sea, the United States Navy, operating from bases in Japan, Singapore, and Diego Garcia, could easily deploy a naval blockade across the entrance of the Malacca Strait. Deprived of foreign oil, China's strategic petroleum reserves would deplete in months, paralyzing its heavy industry, military logistics, and power grid without a single missile needing to be fired on Chinese soil. To neutralize this fatal vulnerability, Beijing has poured hundreds of billions of dollars into its Belt and Road Initiative. China has constructed massive oil and natural gas pipelines stretching from the port of Kyaukphyu in Myanmar directly into Yunnan province, bypassing Malacca altogether. Additionally, China has invested heavily in overland rail networks across Central Asia and backed proposed megaprojects like Thailand's Kra Canal, artificial waterway across the Isthmus of Kra that would allow ships to bypass the Malacca bottleneck entirely. However, structural, financial, and geopolitical hurdles mean none of these alternatives can fully replace the massive throughput of the Malacca shipping lane. Compounding the military tension is the historical menace of maritime piracy. For centuries, the dense mangrove swamps, labyrinthine island archipelagos, and shallow coves surrounding the Riau Islands of Indonesia provided perfect cover for armed sea bandits. In the early 2000s, the Strait of Malacca was classified as the world's most pirate-infested waterway, with dozens of violent hijackings, ransom kidnappings, and oil thefts reported every year. It was only after Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, and Thailand launched coordinated air and sea patrols known as the Malacca Straits Patrol in 2004 that piracy rates dropped significantly. Yet, as geopolitical rivalries intensify and rogue maritime tactics evolve, the threat of sabotage, naval mines, or state-sponsored asymmetric attacks against commercial tankers remains a constant nightmare for international shipping insurance underwriters. Beyond oil, the Strait of Malacca is also the central nervous system for physical global communications. Running beneath the seabed of the strait are dozens of high-capacity fiber-optic submarine cables that transmit real-time financial transactions, cloud data, and internet traffic between Europe, Asia, and North America. Severing these undersea cables through submarine sabotage or accidental anchor drags would instantly sever global financial markets and trigger widespread telecommunications blackouts across Asia. As naval expansion in the Indo-Pacific reaches heights not seen since World War II, the balance of power around Singapore and the Malacca Strait has become the ultimate strategic prize. The nation that controls this narrow neck of water controls the pulse of human civilization. Will the Strait of Malacca remain a peaceful artery of global commerce, or will it become the spark that triggers the next global economic war? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and subscribe to Declassified Geopolitics for more deep dives into global strategy.